Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Signal Executive Interview Series. I'm George Seifers with Signal Magazine. Today, we are going to discuss some changes that public and private sector organizations can make to enhance their defenses in the cyber arena. We will talk about how lessons learned from one attack can help protect organizations from the next attack, and how the public and private sectors can work together to enhance security programs, policies, teams, and expertise in preparation for that next onslaught. Our guest today is Sudhakar Ramakrishna, President and CEO of SolarWinds. Sudhakar joined SolarWinds in January, bringing with him expertise in strategic planning and execution, organizational development, and product strategy. He has nearly 25 years of experience across cloud, mobility, networking, security, and collaboration markets. He most recently served as the CEO of Pulse Secure, a privately held provider of secure and zero trust access solutions for hybrid IT environments, where he was responsible for all aspects of business strategy and execution. Sudhakar, welcome to the Signal Executive Video Series. It is a pleasure to speak with you again.
Thank you, George. Good to meet you again.
Would you like to offer an opening statement to get us started? Maybe tell us a little more about yourself or your vision and goals at SolarWinds?
Definitely, George. You covered my background, so I will stay away from it. I am definitely excited about the future and prospects for SolarWinds as we serve our customers. Today, we are a leader in the industry in what is known as monitoring solutions, monitoring of networks, monitoring of cloud, monitoring of databases, applications, and systems. And we have, over the years, built a very large technology portfolio that is serving customers all over the world. In fact, more than 300,000 of those on a daily basis. What we also understand is that customer needs as they transform their businesses are changing. And so along with that, we have to evolve as well. And we are evolving to a world which we call SolarWinds observability, where we are automating and configuring customer environments. We are helping them observe across all the dimensions that I described. Visualize them, because things like alert fatigue, for instance, are a real thing. It's not about how many logs that you gather, how many alerts you create. It is how do you help a system administrator or a DevOps person or a SecOps person visualize their environment and then automatically remediate them. So that's our vision of how we want to evolve and accelerate consistent with customers' business transformation needs, their productivity challenges, their complexity challenges, and their cost challenges. So that's where SolarWinds is headed to.
Okay, and under your directive, what specifically is SolarWinds doing to enhance its security posture to become, quote, secure by design?
Yeah, secure by design was I would say first an internal theme and an internal campaign that we created to continue to improve our security posture. While we have got a lot of visibility on that externally, first and foremost, I believe that change of this kind that is needing to be sustainable has to change from within, or has to start from within. So secure by design has three broad components of it, or categories, if you want to call it. First is increasing the security, or improving and increasing the security posture of the internal infrastructure. So you could have better threat detecting software. We have built red teams within our organization that create synthetic attacks on top of us. We are funding external researchers. So the idea there being, how can we make our infrastructure, be it on premises or in the cloud, as robust and as strong as it possibly can to defend against attacks? So that is one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is our build systems, the access to the build systems, the consistency of access to the build systems, to make sure that we are providing the right people with the right profiles the right access. So think of it as role-based access control for build systems. But most importantly, the build processes themselves. How do you make software more, deliver with more integrity when you actually deliver it? How do you ensure security at every step of the way, as opposed to security being tested after the fact, or worse, being surprised? And so in that regard, we are making a lot of changes with how software is built. We are adopting parallel build systems to improve the integrity of the code that we deliver, but also reduce the threat surface or change the threat surface, so that even if an attacker were to attack our build processes and build systems, they would have to go through a lot of hoops to cause any damage. In fact, we believe that to be innovative and progressive. So we are writing white papers and sharing that openly with the industry, because supply chain attacks are more common than people will accept. And it's important for all of us to share with the community. So those three elements are the elements of secure by design.
Okay. And what is SolarWinds doing to support its public and private sector customers in doing the same thing?
Yes. So I have been, for instance, talking to a lot of my customers, both in the public and the private sector, as have many members of our team. We've been sharing our findings and our learnings with every one of them. And so increasingly, the conversations with them are around the realm of, hey, what did you learn from Sunburst? How did you evolve your solutions and deployments along the lines of secure by design? And what can we learn from it? And the fundamental reason for that is, when we think about supply chain of software, it can be a supply chain of code and products, but it can also be a supply chain of vendors, so to speak. Meaning many of our customers are also builders of software. So what can happen to one company can happen to them as well. And that's the reason why I think there's heightened consciousness for them to learn about how we are evolving from a secure by design standpoint and then applying it into their environments. So that's how we are helping. Additionally, we are working with the likes of CISA, the UK Cybersecurity Center, and other national defenders, both to learn as well as to share with them.
Okay, great. And as you well know, supply chain attacks are now one of the leading cybersecurity threats. What advice do you have to help both the public and private sectors prevent such attacks and to protect themselves or their customers in the future?
First, George, I very much like to believe that security in general, security of supply chain, definitely has to be a community vigil function. And I like to use the construct of community vigil, because if you think about it in the context of an attacker, especially a nation state attacker, they have a much larger number of resources that not one company on our side can potentially defend against it. I mean, these types of challenges have happened to the largest and the best companies that we have in our industry, including the likes of Microsoft. So what is important to recognize is that we are in a community and we have to collaborate and be transparent within our community in terms of what we find, let's say, about other vendors' vulnerabilities or our own vulnerabilities. And so share that openly and share that with the prevention of hoarding of information, so to speak. Now, again, with the public sector, what we have been actively encouraging is, let's not indulge in victim shaming. If a enterprise is stepping forward and say that they have been attacked or breached, in many ways, that's a mark of conviction that they are sharing what they're learning, and as well as seeking the help of the community to make the community safer. So I think there is a change that must be done both in attitude as well as in hard terms with regards to what information gets shared, how quickly, and so on. And the most important reason I'm urging this is timeliness of discovery and timeliness of information sharing is probably the most important thing in reducing the impact of an attack or prevention of an attack.
Okay, good. And are there specific lessons learned from some of these recent events that organizations can adopt?
Uh, there are multiple lessons, and some of them we covered through our conversation, George, with regards to the notion of community vigil, the notion of not sharing, not shaming the victims. But there are also some hard things, so to speak. Software bombs or software bill of materials, for instance, is a real thing that we must all continue to figure out ways of supporting and ensuring that there is transparency in what pieces of software make up a larger piece of a solution, or a larger solution, I should say. So that is something that I think is enforceable. That is something that is embraceable by everyone, because again, going back to this notion of community vigil, we need to understand what is running in our environments for us to feel safe from a software standpoint. That is one very key learning, I would say. Two is the recognition that it can happen to anyone, no matter how good you are, how many resources you have, and how vigilant you are. So I would, in a strange way, call humility as a learning in this whole thing, because this is the goal of you can never completely defend yourself. Think about it this way: the attackers have to be right only once. You have to be right every single time for you to defend yourself. So when I talk about humility, it is a construct of constantly learning and constantly improving your security posture, because it's not a black or white thing. Yes, there are some basics that everybody has to do, but it is a matter of how do we constantly learn and how do we constantly improve and evolve. That is the second big learning. And I think that applies to all of us in the industry, big or small. And then continuing on, there are best practices with regards to how software is built, and evolving practices like the ones that I described in the context of Secure by Design that we'll continue to publish. So those are some both behavioral as well as some real hard learnings that one can learn from and apply.
Okay, great answer. Now, those of us who have been around for a while have been hearing since the 1990s about this need for public and private sectors to work together on cybersecurity. What does public and private sector collaboration mean to you?
It means free flowing information sharing, or more importantly, timely information sharing between public and private sectors. It's not to say that it doesn't happen today. It may simply take too long to do it, and it's too asymmetric when it happens. So I think that needs to be improved. Two is the items that we discussed about regulation, victim shaming. There has been some discussion, I would say, not yet concrete bills and conclusions about providing a level of indemnity to people who actually come out and say they're being breached, because the incentive right now, so to speak, is for people not to say anything, which is actually more dangerous than saying something and solving it and moving forward. So I expect the Biden administration, which seems very progressive in this area, to continue to collaborate with all of us in the private sector to continue to come up with additional guidelines, meaningful regulations, and support for all of us.
Okay. What are some remaining challenges and what needs to happen for that partnership to be more successful?
I'm very encouraged, first and foremost, George, by the level of dialogue that we have had, the level of dialogue that others have had. I think there's a level of openness to call it give and take on ideas and issues. What we have done on our part is extended basically full support and cooperation to make sure that we are doing what we can as a private sector entity. So what needs to happen is convergence of some of these thoughts and putting them into action. So the executive order, for instance, was a great step in the right direction. But equally, I think there's more that can be done, again, in the spirit of constant learning and humility, and more that I believe will be done as we move forward.
Okay, great. Now, you mentioned the Biden administration and the recent executive order on cybersecurity. How is the theme of public-private partnerships reinforced through the EO? And how does SolarWinds plan to support its government customers as they work to meet the recommendations and requirements that are set out in that executive order?
First of all, I would say that cooperation started well before the EO was built. Many of us were providing input or providing perspectives through various forums, be it the Solarium Commission, through Senate hearings, and through more active editorials. So I think those definitely helped and influenced it. On our part, we are talking with every one of our public sector customers, learning about their specific needs, highlighting our secure by design constructs. And if you really dig into our secure by design constructs, they're very consistent with some of the practices and themes highlighted in the EO. So that's how we have been able to get ahead of the game a little bit, but more importantly, consistently support what's in the EO.
Okay, Sudhakar, that's all the questions I have for you today. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, George, thanks for having me here today. And I hope our viewers and listeners found a few things that can apply to their environments, because my fundamental goal is, as we continue to evolve and learn as SolarWinds, to also collaborate with the industry and freely share everything that we have learned. But because I truly believe that security has to be a community effort and not a one company effort.
Okay, well, thank you, sir, for taking the time to be with us today. And thank you to our audience for joining us. We certainly appreciate your participation as well. For more information on SolarWinds, of course, you can visit their website at solarwinds.com. That concludes our Signal Executive interview. Have a great day, everybody.